Welcome back. This is Roberto with Full Curl Precision again. And for tonight, gotta keep it simple. Just talking about my different types of dies, what I prefer. Mostly, right now, what I use most of the time are between RCBS dies and Lee Precision. I'm using Pacific Tool and Gauge for my customs. So there's that. But these are also customs. They are indeed the nicest dies I have, but they should be for the amount I spent on them. But other than that, for your average consumer, your everyday person, if you're using factory type cartridges like a standard 270, 30-06, 308, 7 rem mag, so on and so on and so on, you don't necessarily need anything big and fancy. Sometimes simpler is better. But also adding into that, user friendly. Trying to make things user friendly. And so as I've gotten the chance to do some reloading and gone back and forth, I've learned a few things. Let me actually turn this a little bit. Right, there we go. As far as an actual press, as a single stage, RCBS is a really good company. They do a phenomenal job. I have a couple others, like a Frankfurt Arsenal. It's good, but I feel like this is much more steady, much more consistent. So I prefer this, especially if you get some stubborn primers that don't want to come out. This is easier to extract. Lee makes some pretty good ones as well, but as far as an overall well-built unit, it's hard to beat these. Now, this one I actually got in on a trade. There was somebody that had posted something online, and I wasn't that far away, and I had something to trade for it, so I did. And I was able to get a whole bunch of supplies, and it worked out really well for everybody. But I found in using the dies as your standard, typical RCBS and Lee dies, I've come to prefer, for my application, the Lee dies. And I'll show what I mean. So here's a set of dies for a 243. And this is all you really need. This one is meant for resizing and removing the primers. And this one seats your bullet. And that's, for the most part, as good as it is. The only thing I really don't like about these, and I'll show you, actually I'll pull it out, is this aspect. So if you notice, you got a hex nut, and then you need a screwdriver. This is threaded. And then this is a collar that's also threaded. In order to make your adjustments, it requires tools. And while that's not necessarily a problem in and of itself, like with this one, once you set this, you don't really need to make any adjustments, because this is meant for resizing and for removing primers. But when it comes to seating your bullets, you're kind of in the same position. Again, there you go. You can see the slot and then the hex. For as many bullet types as I like to build for my specific rifle, and I'll show you the 4 options I'm mostly using right now. So here we go. 150 grain Nosler AccuBond long range, 140 grain Sierra Game Changers. This is a Federal Terminal Ascent, and these are a 110 grain AccuBond. If you're going back and forth between your different styles and loads, it's kind of a pain to have to go back and forth with the RCBS, I found, because you're trying to fine-tune your seating. And I have found with the Lees, because here's the same, and by the way, these cost about the same amount. It costs about, on average, about $60 to $70 to get a good set of RCBS dies. That's what I paid for these Lees. And I got these off of Amazon. Both sets. Okay? Both sets, not on sale. And I spent about the same amount, within a couple dollars of each other. This is a much nicer set. I feel like the material is nicer. And my biggest thing with this is the ease of use. For instance, when it comes to the resizing, if you need to replace anything, once you set your resizing, it's easy. You have one flat point on each side, and you can set a wrench there, and this comes off, and it's just a nut. You know, have an extra nut here, so you can see it's slotted. There you go. It's starting to show up a little bit as I move it around, and so that center punch and decapper and resizing tool makes it easy to be able to do that, but it just goes with a smooth bore right up in here, and then it just closes down. So it's not hard to make your fine-tune adjustments, but it's the seating die for seating your bullets. This one's really nice because it just adjusts by finger. It's really easy. So the nice part about it is fine-tuning is, in my application, again, because I'm going back and forth and I'm also loading for others in 27 caliber, it makes it so much easier, I have found, and really comparable in the same kind of accuracies. I haven't found any big discrepancy as far as the accuracy difference. They're right in there in the same wheelhouse. Now, I get if you're gonna, there are higher end die sets you can get. That's fine, and you're gonna get better accuracy out of those, and they have different features. But for your average everyday type shooter and hunter, you're not really concerned about getting the most ultra tight. We're not worried about getting groups that are under a 1/4 inch, this, that, and the third. And don't get me wrong, it'd be nice, but when you're only shooting out to 300 or 400, even out to, I'm going to say out to 600 yards. Again, I said my average group for my 270, for my rifle, is consistently under half an inch, 0.47 inches. When you add in what they call the minute of angle, so a little over 1 inch group is considered 1 minute. So that's at 100 yards. And it's just over 2 inches at 200 yards. 3 inch group at 300 yards, so on and so forth. So it just kind of keeps growing with distance. If you're at a 1/2 inch group at 100, and you multiply that by 5, when you get out to 500, you're only at a 2.5 inch group, which sits inside the palm of your hand. Okay? For hunting application, there's not a pronghorn, whitetail, mule deer, elk, black bear, or anything else you're going to shoot at that doesn't do a good job on. So even if you did that, so every 200 yards is like an inch. So even at 600 yards, you're talking about 3 inches, which is basically the very outside of the palm of my hand. So by the time you add in things like that, okay, then you kind of keep pushing that out. Even at 1,000 yards, you're looking at only a 5-inch group. Not very big, okay? That's really not a big group. So for even the casual shooter, these dies are doing the trick. You don't need to go and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a singular set of dies in order to accomplish that. Now, again, if you're talking about where you're doing PRS shooting, or as they call PRL hunter and things like that, or I can't remember all the categories. There's different categories of competitive shooting, and if you're into that, where every 1/4 inch or every 16th or whatever increments you're trying to break it down in, those things matter. For the average everyday person who's just trying to have a good time, go out and shoot, it doesn't really matter, as long as you're getting relatively good accuracy. So what I'm trying to encourage is finding the best quality equipment that works for what you can afford. Don't worry about what other people can afford or what they're doing. It doesn't really matter. Worry about what you can afford and what you can do. So finding the right type of cartridge that you can afford to shoot, not only in relation to its performance, but also in relation to the available equipment. Rifles being part of that equipment. So if you're going to have a rifle that you need to have that kind of equipment in, the nice part about something like a 270, like a 308, like a 30-06 is rifles are available from the $400 price range all the way up to thousands and thousands of dollars. So the great part is you can, whatever you're looking to spend and what you want to do, you can build it very, very easily. Again, is the 270 a target cartridge? No, because at the time that the 30-06 was invented, you're going back into 1906. Before that, it was the 30-03, so 1903. It was a military round that got adapted into hunting. Long-range target shooting really wasn't a thing back then. It was long-range shooting was military application only. Really, that's how it was. In 1925, you had Winchester introduce the 270 Winchester. Same type of thing. And then the 280 Remington came out. And then P.O. Ackley, look him up. He got some really good information. Took the 280 Remington, modified it, invented the 280 Ackley Improved, which honestly, once he did that, has had a tremendous effect on every single cartridge you see on the market today. Anybody that says otherwise is a liar. That includes me. Taking some of the information that he wrote, I was able to apply it and start working on developing this new cartridge. So, again, going back, is something like a 270 or 30-06 really designed for long-range target shooting? No. They're predominantly a hunting cartridge. But that doesn't mean you can't apply them and have fun with them. You know, with some of the new optics, you can absolutely find a really good scope. You can turn that elevation turret and your windage turret, and you can fine-tune that thing with the right load and the right bullet easily 1,000 to 1,200 yards without even trying too much. But you got to also put in the work. You have to know your winds. You have to have the right scope. You have to have your loads developed well. But the best part about it is you can do that all on something like this. Again, it's simply a $60 to $70 set of dies. And the thing is, if you get the right sale, they're even cheaper. You don't need to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. These ones, these particular ones, these are mine and mine only. Okay? Because these are my design. So these are going to be considerably more accurate because they were custom machined. It's not the same thing. So just remember, when you're trying to get into this, don't get so hot and bothered by what someone else has that you put yourself into a hole financially just so you can keep up with whatever they're doing. It doesn't really matter. The differences between a basic equipment like this, again, I got it on a trade. It's fairly old, but you know what? The accuracy I'm still getting out of it is really good. So who cares? And it's literally going to be the same exact press that I'm going to be using when I'm loading my customs. Is it going to affect anything? No. I don't think so at all. I think it comes down to the amount of effort I put into it to make sure it's good. It's less about the equipment and more about the effort you take in to know your numbers, make sure they're right, and test. That's a reality. So you got to know your pressures, you got to know your powders, you got to know your bullets. Try different primers. A lot of times when you order stuff online, you get like primers. You see them in packs of 1,000 primers or more. Yeah, but if you're trying to develop, you don't need 1,000 primers. Why spend that money? Get a flat of 100 instead. Because you can find those typically between $9 and $10 as opposed to $100 to $120. If you're going to get into it, do it smart. Don't buy big bulk powder. Don't buy it like that. Buy it in the 1 pound increments. And also start with a good reloading manual. Get those manuals. You can download some digitally. Hodgdon. So here, this company right here, Hodgdon, they have apps that you can download. So does Ramshot. Okay. And Vitavori, I'll show you this so you can see the name. Yeah, it's kind of a funny spelling, but Vitavori has a free app that you can download, and you can select your cartridge, and they already have it selected as to the general powders that work the best with that cartridge according to weight of the bullet, and then also charge availability, so the amount of powder you put in the case. So all of this is kind of just basically written out for you. All you have to do is read it and learn it. And if you do that right, you can do it safely, you can have fun. Learn what your max pressures are and do your best, even if you want to push up to those edges, which I've done before. But don't exceed them. That's a good way to get yourself hurt. I did a video about somebody posting information about how they were getting a certain velocity out of a short barrel with a certain short Magnum cartridge. And you know what? I called them out on it. I went and I pulled up my Gordon's reloading tool on my computer, and I selected all through the most common types of powders that he could be using, which the guy's a liar. And I pulled up all the numbers according to that length of barrel. And I could do that. And so I did. And I found that there's some really good velocities, which were faster than I was anticipating, but they were nowhere near the velocity that he said he was getting. But I did notice a pattern. Between all of those, in order to get the velocities he claimed, would basically have turned the rifle into a hand grenade. Okay? So when I say follow the reloading manuals and stay in the pressures and be safe, I mean that. There's guys who end up in the hospital or dead every year because they don't listen. They got themselves a Darwin Award. And you know what? I don't feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for their families. Okay? I feel sorry for the people who had to deal with the mess that they created. But I don't feel bad for the people that put themselves in harm's way because they couldn't pay attention or they thought they knew better. Don't be those guys. Learn from the mistakes of others. There's a reason why there's so many standards laid out. So be safe out there. Have fun. Have good sense. I want to say common sense, but common sense is not so common anymore. So have good sense. Be picky about your equipment, but at the same time, be reasonable. You know, if you want to go with RCBS, you're going to have a good success with it. If you want to go with Lee, you're going to have good success with it. There's plenty other companies. But if you're trying to do this on a budget where you can afford to get into it and not go bankrupt in the process, you're going to have a hard time passing up on both Lee and RCBS. There's Lyman, there's a few other companies. But make sure you do your homework. There's plenty of good distributors. There's so many reloaders that love to share their information on forums. Go for it. But whenever they share that information as far as the load that they're getting, make sure you're comparing it to reloading manuals. Okay? Don't just take their word for it. It's okay to go, oh man, I'd love to be able to see if this works out. And then you actually go and do your research. And you may find out that that person was telling the truth. Or you may find out and go, maybe they're fibbing a little bit. And so you ask another question, like, what's your elevation? Because velocities and pressures and everything else change according to your elevation. So do your research, learn the science. It can be a whole lot of fun. So this is where science and physics and getting nerdy kind of get really cool. So don't be afraid to learn it. It's a lot of fun. But again, be safe, have fun, learn it. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, hit that subscribe bell, notification bell rather. I am trying to make this grow and have fun discussions where everyone can learn, because at the end of the day, we should be helping each other out instead of doing what Steve Hornady does and try to bully people into the ground.